Since the dawn of human consciousness, we've asked, what lies beyond the veil of the visible? Long before laboratories, surveys, or statistics, people saw signs in dreams, omens in the wind, and voices in the silence of the night. Some called them gods, others spirits, or the whispers of the dead. But always, there was something more. In ancient Greece, thinkers like Plato spoke of a world of eternal forms, a realm more real than our own, which the soul glimpses before birth and remembers in fragments during life. He believed the soul pre-existed the body and would survive its death. Later, Plotinus, the founder of Neoplatonism, developed an intricate cosmology where the soul could ascend through spiritual discipline toward union with the divine. For him, mystical experience wasn't delusion. It was insight into a deeper reality. Meanwhile, across the ancient world, from Egypt to Mesopotamia, dreams were seen as messages from the gods. Oracles interpreted visions. Shamans entered trance states. Across cultures, altered states were gateways to the unknown. In the Islamic Golden Age, figures like Avicenna, Ibn Sina, and Averroes, Ibn Rushd, debated the nature of the soul. Avicenna, a physician and philosopher, described the flying man thought experiment, a man suspended in space without sensory input, who would still be aware of his existence. He believed this awareness pointed to the soul's immaterial nature. Averroes, following Aristotle, argued that intellect could transcend individual minds, a proto-parapsychological idea perhaps. In Christian Europe, Thomas Aquinas synthesized Aristotle with Christian doctrine. He proposed that angels could influence human imagination. He believed in prophetic dreams, divine visions, and demonic illusions, but within a theological framework, not a scientific one. Fast forward to the 17th century, the age of reason and revolution. René Descartes, the French philosopher, declared, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. Descartes drew a sharp line between the res extensa, the material world, and res cogitans, the thinking, immaterial mind. This mind-body dualism would haunt science for centuries. It laid the groundwork for both psychology and parapsychology, as it implied the mind might operate independently of the brain. Around this time, Franz Anton Mesmer emerged in the late 18th century. A German physician, Mesmer believed in a mysterious force he called animal magnetism, a universal fluid that could be manipulated to heal the sick and induce altered states. While Mesmer's theories were eventually discredited, his practice of inducing trance-like states gave rise to hypnosis, suggestibility studies, and later, explorations of mediumship and telepathy. Mesmerism, despite its pseudo-scientific roots, opened the door for more systematic investigations of the unconscious and anomalous cognition. By the mid-19th century, the Western world witnessed a dramatic rise in spiritualism, a popular movement claiming that the dead could communicate through mediums. It began with the Fox sisters in 1848 in Hydesville, New York, who claimed to receive rapping messages from a ghost in their home. Soon, seances, table tipping, and automatic writing became a cultural craze, especially in the United States and Britain. While much of it was exposed as fraud, some credible observers, including scientists, became intrigued. Was it all deception? Or was there something genuine beneath the noise? But this is where the story of parapsychology truly begins. not with mystics or miracle workers, but with a group of sober-minded philosophers, physicists, and psychologists who dared to take the strange seriously. In 1882, in London, they founded the Society for Psychical Research, a disciplined effort to investigate telepathy, clairvoyance, and the possibility of life after death using the tools of science. Their goal wasn't belief, it was inquiry, and it would change everything. In the early months of 1882, amid the smog, soot, and certainty of Victorian London, a quiet revolution was unfolding, not in the factories or Parliament halls, but in the study of the human soul. At the time, the scientific world was buzzing with triumphs. Darwin's theory of evolution had reshaped biology. Maxwell's equations had unified electricity and magnetism. And positivism, the idea that only what could be measured, tested, or observed was real, was becoming an unshakable faith in the academic world. But in the shadow of this progress, a small group of scholars believed something vital was being left behind. These were not occultists or spiritual fanatics. They were Cambridge-educated intellectuals, philosophers, physicists, psychologists, committed to the scientific method. And they had grown disillusioned with the materialist dogma that denied even the possibility of mind acting independently from matter. They met not to summon spirits, but to study them, with notebooks, protocols, and a determination to let the evidence speak. Out of these meetings came the formation of a world-first organization, the Society for Psychical Research, the SPR, established in London in 1882. The SPR was born from an unlikely collaboration of towering intellects, individuals who believed that the scientific method should be applied not just to atoms or fossils, but to the mysteries of human consciousness. The first president of the SPR was Henry Sidgwick, a highly respected philosopher and professor of moral science at Cambridge. Known for his rigor in utilitarian ethics, Sidgwick had long wrestled with the question of immortality. For him, the belief in life after death was not a matter of superstition. It was a philosophical necessity. Because if the soul perished with the body, then all our ethical systems, our pursuit of truth, our notions of justice, might be meaningless ephemera. But Sidgwick wasn't content with theological speculation. He wanted evidence. He brought to the SPR a deep moral seriousness and academic legitimacy, ensuring the organization would not be dismissed as mere pseudoscience. Under his leadership, questions of spirit communication and telepathy moved from the seance room to the Cambridge syllabus, a radical shift for its time. If Sidgwick was the SPR's philosophical backbone, Frederic William Henry Myers was its theoretical soul. A classicist and poet with a mystical temperament, Myers believed the conscious mind was just the tip of an enormous psychological iceberg. He coined the term subliminal self, what we might now call the unconscious, to describe the deeper layers of mental activity responsible for dreams, intuition, creative insight, and possibly even psychic phenomena. He argued that these hidden aspects of the mind might account for telepathy, apparitions, and spiritual encounters, not as supernatural intrusions, but as natural expressions of a much vaster psyche. Myers would later author the monumental work Human Personality and Its Survival of Bodily Death, 1903, which systematically gathered case studies, theories, and philosophical arguments for the survival of consciousness beyond death. His goal wasn't to prove mysticism, but to develop a more complete psychology, one that didn't shy away from the anomalous, A trained psychologist and gifted musician, Edmund Gurney brought a cool, methodical precision to the group's more speculative aims. He carried out some of the first controlled investigations into hypnosis, hallucinations, and suggestion, laying the groundwork for what would later evolve into both clinical psychology and parapsychological testing. Alongside Myers and Sidgwick, Gurney co-authored the landmark study Phantasms of the Living, 1886. This 2-volume work compiled over 700 first-hand reports of apparitional experiences, many occurring at the exact time of a relative's death, often across great distances. The authors used early forms of statistical comparison to argue that the frequency of such reports far exceeded what chance alone could explain. Gurney remained skeptical of mediums and spiritualist performances, but he believed that genuine anomalies were hiding beneath the noise. His tragic death in 1888, rumored to be suicide by chloroform overdose, shocked the psychical community and cast a somber cloud over the movement. Rounding out the core group was Sir William Barrett, a physicist at the Royal College of Science in Dublin. Barrett was fascinated by mesmeric phenomena, clairvoyance, and the mysterious behavior of subjects under hypnosis. Unlike some of his colleagues, Barrett was eager to conduct laboratory-style experiments on psychometry, the supposed ability to sense facts about objects or people through physical contact, and clairvoyant perception. He was instrumental in the SPR's experimental rigor, introducing controlled environments, blind procedures, and repeat trials to test psi claims. In 1885, Barrett helped to found the American Society for Psychical Research, ASPR, bringing the movement across the Atlantic and setting the stage for involvement by figures like William James and James Hyslop in the United States. The SPR's charter was bold and uncompromising. To explore that large body of debatable phenomena, designated by such terms as mesmeric, psychical, and spiritualistic, with the hope of discovering whether they indeed reveal any new force operating in nature. But this wasn't idle speculation. It was an empirical project. The SPR focused on several key domains. Telepathy. Could thoughts travel from one mind to another? Clairvoyance. Could people perceive distant events or hidden objects? Mediumship. Were mediums genuinely channeling the dead, or merely channeling their own unconscious? Apparitions. Were ghost sightings hallucinations, or evidence of post-mortem awareness? Survival after death. Could any verifiable trace of consciousness exist beyond the death of the body? To answer these, the SPR conducted structured case documentation, interviews, notarized witness reports, census surveys, like the Census of Hallucinations, which collected over 17,000 responses, controlled experiments with mediums and hypnotic subjects, psychological testing of sensory thresholds, memory, and suggestion, early use of statistical inference to determine non-chance patterns. Crucially, the SPR was not afraid to expose fraud. Some of the era's most famous mediums, including Eusapia Palladino and Florence Cook, were investigated and at times debunked. The SPR insisted that belief must never outweigh evidence. The Society for Psychical Research was not an answer. It was a question, weaponized with scientific tools. It declared that no line of inquiry, no matter how taboo, should be off limits to rational investigation. In doing so, it challenged reductionist materialism. paving the way for modern discussions in neuropsychology, altered states of consciousness, quantum consciousness theories, modern parapsychology, labs like Duke University's Rhine Lab and the Princeton Peer Program. And while the SPR never offered definitive proof of the soul, it accomplished something arguably more important. It made it intellectually permissible, even noble, to ask the most dangerous question in science. Does the human mind reach beyond the brain?